marriages go through, most marriages go through these different stages, right? Number one is the shock stage. This is a stage where most newly married couples experience, where you are shocked at some of the weaknesses of your spouse. You are shocked at some of their behaviors, the things you thought you knew. You're shocked about the differences between you and your spouse. You're shocked about the realities of the person you've married, right? And it's a phase, right? You dated someone for about a year and both of you got married. Now you're living together. You find out that, oh, this person is actually very dirty, or this person is actually very impatient, or this person does not really understand me. Oh, how come I didn't see that this person, we are not compatible? You begin to see, the different compatibility issues, and it begins to really shock you. You asking yourself, who are you? You're asking your spouse, who are you? Who are you really? How come I didn't see this? And most times, it doesn't really matter how long you've dated. By the time you are married, you are going to be shocked. You are definitely going to be shocked at their flaws. And you realize that your spouse is not perfect, right? It's a phase, right? And if you don't manage this phase well, some people actually divorce immediately once they are shocked, right? Now you see people that are married for 3 months and they're already divorced because they're not able to manage that shock phase. You're going to get to know some information, some things about your spouse that you'll be surprised, right? And it's a phase. Most marriages go through this phase. You are not alone. You're not alone. There are people that have been shocked for 2 years. They are still shocked. People are shocked for 3 years. You keep realizing things about your spouse and you're like, what? Who is this person? How did I marry this person? That's a phase, and it is a phase. Then once you're done with this phase, you get to the next phase, which is the negotiation phase, where you are trying to change your spouse. You are trying to have discussion about this shock, these things you're shocked about. You're having the conversation with your spouse, asking your spouse whether they can change. Oh, I don't like this. I don't like this. I don't like the way you eat. Oh, maybe you are a morning person and your spouse is a night person. And by the time you are about to sleep, your spouse is just, is just like, this is his or her own active time. And you are shocked. Who sleeps this late? Or it could be that, when you want to sleep, you like your lights off, but your spouse likes the light on. And that is causing a quarrel in the home. Or you just realize that your spouse is a spender while you are a saver. You love to save, but your spouse loves to spend. Now you begin to have that conversation with your spouse. You're trying to change your spouse. And most times, when you try to change your spouse, most times it doesn't work. They don't change. You start complaining. You start criticizing your spouse. And these complaints and naggings can actually even increase the heat in your marriage. And there's constant quarrels, constant fights. And if this is not well managed, you now get to the next phase, which is the anger or frustration stage, where you begin to be upset about your spouse. You are angry about your spouse. You're trying to change them. They're not changing. Or they don't even understand you. They don't understand what you're saying. Why do you have a problem with how I eat? Why do you have a problem with when I come back from work? Maybe your spouse stays late outside, comes back late. And you're like, who does this? Or your spouse is not keeping boundaries with the opposite sex. Your spouse is speaking with his or her ex. You become upset. You are angry. You're frustrated. That's a phase. And sometimes it could be that the anger shows itself as disgust. You are disgusted at your spouse. You are resentful about your spouse. All right? You feel regret. It's a phase. Most marriages go through this phase, right? And it's going to pass if you can manage it well. Then from the anger phase, when you are angry for a while, or you're frustrated for a while, and you don't manage your emotions properly, you enter into the next phase, what we call the depression or the sadness phase. This is when you begin to feel hopeless. Like, oh, I married the wrong person. Oh, you made a mistake. And you feel depressed. You are hopeless because you've tried to change your spouse. Your spouse is not changing. You've tried to talk to them. You've reported them to this authority, and there are no changes. You are angry. You've been angry. You're upset. You fought with your spouse, and things are not changing. You begin to feel despair. That's a depression phase. You feel hopeless. You feel so much regret. Sometimes it could be anxiety. You feel so much anxious. You are going back home and you are anxious. And that anxiety is wearing you out. You are exhausted. You are getting burnt out because of your marriage. It's a phase. By the time you are depressed for a while, reality will begin to dawn on you. You now move to the next stage, which is the acceptance stage. You begin to accept that there are things you cannot change about your spouse. That what is done is done. You're already a married woman. You're already a married man. And there's nothing you can do about some of the things. I mean, your spouse has been, maybe your spouse is 28 years old. They've been living for 28 years. Our parents couldn't change her. His parents couldn't change him. You are the one. You just married for how long? You want to change him. They've been programmed like this for years. They've lived this way for years. You can't just come on the scene and you want to bring changes. It may not work that way. You come to a point of acceptance and begin to accept your spouse for who they are. You accept your spouse's flaws, weaknesses, shortcomings, right? You find ways to manage it, to accept it. You accept it. And one of the qualities of a healthy marriage is unconditional acceptance. That your spouse does not necessarily have to earn your love. Your spouse does not have to earn your acceptance. You accept them regardless of their flaws, regardless of their shortcomings, regardless of their weaknesses, regardless of what they do or don't do, regardless of what they have or what they don't have. You accept your spouse regardless. And it's a phase. Once you accept your spouse, you begin to feel a level of peace, right? You stop complaining or nagging about their weaknesses. It's a level, and that happens for almost every marriage. Yeah, nobody is perfect. Even you are not perfect, right? So accept your spouse. You've married them. Accept. Although they are definitely, deal breakers. I'm not talking about deal breakers. I'm probably not talking about cheating. But I'm saying, simple things. Issues of preferences. Oh, this person is a morning person. This person is a night person. This person is a talkative. This person is a listener. This person is a spender. This person is a saver. These are, personality issues, personality differences, gender differences, right? There are things that are just peculiar to genders. Your wife is more of an emotional person. You are more of a logical person. Or even sometimes it's the wife that is logical. The husband is the emotional person. Right? You need to come to terms to accept your spouse. There are personality type differences. Your husband might be a very gentle person that does not like to talk. And you might be someone that is very friendly. You have a lot of friends. Those are differences that you might learn. You might need to learn how to accept. Accept them. Your spouse does not have to be like you. There is beauty in diversity. Right? It's okay to be different. Accept the differences. And find ways, and that's what will lead you to the next phase, which is the adaptation stage, where you begin to learn ways to adapt to your spouse. Find ways to find, how both of you can complement your differences, right? You are someone who loves to stay at home more. Your wife loves to go out. Your wife is a social butterfly. How can you complement yourselves, right? You find ways to complement yourself. You find ways to find the usefulness of your wife, right? You find ways to find the usefulness of your husband, all right? So that is very, very important in building a healthy marriage. Now, the earlier you can actually catalyze or accelerate this process. You don't have to. There are people that have been in shock stage for long. For 10 years, you are still shocked. For 10 years, you are still trying to change your spouse. You are still negotiating. And you don't want to accept. The more you struggle with acceptance, the more you are going to, you are not going to enjoy your marriage. You are always going to be upset. You are always going to be offended. Right? So the earlier you accelerate to acceptance, the better. Right? Acceptance is very important. It's a solution to many of the marital issues people have. If your wife never changes, would you accept her? If your husband never change, I'm not saying about deal-breaking issues, or I'm not saying about cheating or physical violence. I'm not saying those things. I'm talking about, simple personality differences, gender differences, differences in upbringing, if they never change, would you love them still? That's a question you need to answer, right? So that you can move from anger. Some of you have been angry for years. You have pent up anger towards your spouse. You have pent up frustration, pent up resentment, and it's not making you enjoy your life. It's making you stuck. If you really want to stay married, then you have to learn the act of acceptance. I hope this helped you, and I hope you've gotten value from this video. If you have, ensure you subscribe and click the notification button. Also share with your family and friends. Until I see you in the next video, have a nice time.